our final session for today, and that is Elena Thorpe. She's an FCS teacher, and she's going to talk about FCCLA. She's in her 4th year of teaching FCS at Tri-Valley High School, where she has also been the FCCLA advisor. Elena is also an OAFCS, which stands for Ohio Association of Teachers of Family and Consumer Science. And she serves on the OAFCS board as the conference co-chair and planning committee. She's also on the national FCCLA consultant team, and FCCLA stands for Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. Take it away, Elena.
Sorry, we are a little early, so hopefully she was ready. That's okay. If you are ready, Elena.
Do you want to take? You can take the break. You can take the break if you want.
No, I wasn't planning on taking a break. I just wanted to let everybody know if we didn't actually give it time for any questions. So if anyone had questions for the industry leaders, leave them in the comments. And I just want to make sure you were ready. Sorry.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So yes, my name is Elena Thorpe, and I'm a family consumer science teacher at Tri-Valley High School, where I do have an FCCLA chapter. This year has been really interesting trying to get FCCLA rolling. I went into the year thinking with really high hopes of integrating FCCLA, which I'll get to in a little bit. But with COVID, things kind of slowed everything up, and you had to really go back through and reevaluate how to kind of make connections, how to bring in partners. I will show later like all the some partners that I've used in the past. This year, it's been, I want to say dry. It's been not hard to get them in, because with the fact of Zoom, it's been really nice to be able to bring people in that, you know, maybe your schedules typically don't allow them to come in and do like an in-person, or if you have weird schedules like I do, where you have like a foods class in the morning and then you have child development thrown in there and personal finance, and you have another foods class where they're able to kind of just come in and go to meet your day, so they're not just kind of hanging out randomly in your classroom. So I'll go ahead and get into starting how to get these partners into your classroom. FCCLA. So what is FCCLA? So Family, Career, Community Leaders of America. It's a youth organization. It's a leadership organization. It's student-led. So as an advisor, I sometimes find myself being a coach. So I think of a basketball team, you know, the team is the kids and they're doing the work, and you're kind of the mastermind or the person behind them, kind of supporting them and directing them. This should be considered or brought right into your FCS classroom. This is the first year that I've gone almost all in implementing it all into my classroom. Before, I just took like bits and pieces, kind of introduced FCCLA within all my classes, assigned a couple projects, used the rubrics for things. But this year, I think I've stayed after, you know, this crunch time, we hit all these lovely snow days. So I really had to start staying after to kind of get kids to get projects finished. But this year I was completely almost, I would say probably 85% all into the classroom. Okay, so why should we use it in the classroom? It's going to enhance that student learning and their leadership. It puts the ball in their court. It's their project. They're going to get what they get out of it. So the more they put in, the more they're going to get out. It also kind of opens up a lot of things. So if you're teaching something, kids can take it several different ways. You're not just kind of saying, this is what I want you to do. You can open it up and let kids explore. So for instance, this year, one of the projects we talked about in child development, or I guess topics, we talked about just being able to, you know, coping with COVID, coping with not being able to do what you typically would want to do. And how does a little person who's 5, you know, 3 or 4 or 5, and they're used to being able to just go to grandma's, how can they cope with that? How can they do that? And it kind of spun into a project where they looked at their own mental health and teen health, mental health, and they actually came up with a social media platform where they shared tips, they shared ideas, just sparked, you know, that excitement in them. Also with prenatal development, we talked about the importance of that 40-week pregnancy. We talked about the importance of folic acid, and then we kind of talked about Okay, so if you have a baby that is born premature, what are some things that you may face? And I had a group that took that project and ran with it. They collected items for the NICU, which are still in my classroom because we haven't been able to get into the hospital to donate those. But they created NICU packages for the parents. I think there's gum in there, there's hand sanitizer, there's hand lotion, there's chapstick, just little things that may keep the parents a little more feeling at home when they are away. I got to share my experience. Last year, I had a baby that spent about a week in the NICU. So being able to try to juggle her being there and then 2 kids at home, and then having to come up with sub plans 3 weeks early than I thought I was going to have to come up with. So I got to share that with them, and that really sparked their interest. We actually have, with our Ohio Family Consumer Science courses, there's an alignment. I'll share the slides with you guys, but there is a link in there where you can see where these FCCLA courses line up with our actual courses in our classrooms. So when we look at this little model, I'm sure we've all seen it. So how FCS education should be and career tech education is we should have the FCCLA factor in, combining it with our class and our labs and then our experiential learning. And that's where I'm really going to hit on today is like experiential learning and how to pull that in and get our community involved. Okay, so with experiential learning, it's going to promote positive attitudes towards learning. It's also going to help us get that true life or real world skills that kids need and when they're looking at careers. And it's also going to create a more, I'm going to say like engaged members, but influence, ready to go learners and leaders into that work field. So that's, I guess, when we're ultimately looking at, when I look at my students, I want them to be the most rounded students I can get them. I think that was actually like one of my interview questions. So if you're one of the new people graduating or getting ready to enter into the interviewing field of FCS, I want my students not to just excel, yes, they can crack an egg and not get shells in it, or yes, they know how to do this and they can know how to take internal temperatures, but I also want them to know those real world skills, communication, organization, being able to apply themselves and to just be able to step up and take a leadership role. So how can we do this? We can bring our community inside. So we're going to think outside the box. So community partners I've worked with, I've had other people work with. So 4-H clubs, sometimes just bringing in, I know I've contacted my extension office before and I'm like, hey, do you have this project? I took this project when I was in 4-H, like, can I pull something out of it? I know my extension office in my county does not have an FCS educator, but they do have some supplies and resources that were left from when we used to have one. My department's pretty dated, but they still can provide you with facts and other resources. And so that's a great way. So community colleges, libraries, I work with my FFA a lot. We have a greenhouse. So sometimes when we are composting, we learn in food science about composting. We take our stuff out there. We also start herb gardens out there. So each kid takes a little herb garden home with them when we talk about culinary fundamentals and some other places that I'll talk to you later. Okay, so how this comes into play. So I look at the 3 E's, so enrich, extend, and engage. And I think they all play together when we look at education, especially career tech education. So I love the quote, tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, but involve me, I learn. And I think that's really important. And I think that's why career tech education, especially family consumer science, stands out. I think I'm probably one of the only people in my building that does not use a textbook. And I remember my first year, I was very heavily on the textbook, like, okay, what do I need to teach? What I need to teach? And I wasn't getting the results and what I had pictured in my head, what I wanted. Every year I just took a little bit out of it and a little bit away from the textbook and a little bit away. This year, I don't think we've used a textbook once. It's just finding new ways to teach. And that can be through, hands-on experience. That can be having a guest speaker. That can be having just resources. Hey, can I borrow this? Can I show my kids this? Can I have this happen? There's a chat. So just kind of going away from that textbook and opening the kids up that you don't have to get all your information from that book. networking is one of the biggest things I think we can do, and one of the biggest things that we can instill in our kids. Okay, so how can this be done? So I've broken down a couple of the FCCLA projects that I'm familiar with, or I've been close to someone who's been familiar with, and some that I've judged. One of the biggest parts in our FCCLA, I think in one of the rubrics, and sometimes the kids stumble on, is there's always this connection to a partner. And they're like, well, what does that mean? And I always tell them, think outside the box. If there's something you're trying to accomplish, I guarantee someone has probably done it. Someone probably provides that service, or someone can help you with that service. So don't make it too hard on yourself. So when we look at career investigation, I do this in my career and college readiness class, and that's usually I bring people in. People are helping the students. So we look at, where to find a job. We look at Ohio Means Jobs a lot. We look at interviewing skills. I bring in people from our community, usually business owners or people that are kind of prominent in our area, to come in and conduct mock interviews, give them feedback. Also just being able to have my students go out and do job shadowing. It's making those network connections. So, hey, I job shadowed you when I was in high school, and I'm interested in this career. I'm looking at this career. Can you help me? Again, this is all about job shadowing and making those big connections and developing those career skills. The next one, chapter service. I think this is the most basic to start with. So if you are a new FCS teacher or FCCLA advisor, just getting out into your community. So, contacting your parks and recs, hey, is there a place that we can we adopt a highway? Can we adopt a road? Is there a part that needs, litter cleanup? Just getting the kids out and getting your name across. Just seeing the kids a lot of times out, maybe with their FCCLA shirts on, or just, publicizing it that, hey, we're here, we're doing something for our community, is a great way to get your school and your chapter recognized. So I've had students that have cleaned up trash before. I've had students that have gone down to our Christ table and help serve food. And then recently we have Habitat for Humanity that's really starting to pick up in our area. So we've had students that have went out and helped with them. Focus on children. This has become one of my favorite ones. I'm still kind of fine tuning it on how I want to get the kids to be able to present these. I have not had the kids dive into this one yet fully, but I've been pulling bits and pieces out of it. So a focus on children, I put this in my child development class. Working with a preschool, we actually get to use we started a preschool in our building, or in our district, and it's fairly new. So I'm kind of hoping with them within the next couple of years that I can get more of like a good working relationship. COVID kind of threw that in there, where we would be able to go observe up there, maybe have the kids go up and be able to take an afternoon where they actually get to kind of be student teachers and get to learn. But what we've done before in the past is go out to our career technical center, so Mideast, and we actually got to go in. They have a like a blind viewing room, so they get to go in and the kids can't see them, they can see the kids, and we look at what are some of those typical behaviors. We practice running records. We've also worked with our Muskingum County Health Department this year. For our FACS project, our students looked at car seat safety, and we were surprised to find out that our county actually has a car seat safety education program put in place. We were hoping to actually work with them. With COVID, none of their classes were taking place, but they were able to provide us with information that we were able to use to get our presentation and our public service announcements out. And then using our community library, or we have a branch up, locally, we can walk to it from our building, but just being able to go up there and, finding out, do you guys offer kids story times? Are we able to come in and, help with that? That was their plan for this year. Unfortunately, COVID, circle times do not take place. So that is on their agenda for next year, is getting in and working more with our library system. Food innovations. This is one that I'm so happy I got to be put into that last year. I got to evaluate it. I think we were one of the last, I got to evaluate this last region that got to actually be evaluated for regionals last year before COVID took place. And I was really nervous about it. I'm like, I've never even seen this project completed before, but I was really excited and really happy that I got to do it because I had my food science kids take this over this year. So food innovations and, food science brings basically farm to table. And I went and did a Grow Next Gen has a food science professional development that I got to participate in 2 summers ago. And we got to go up to SIFT, and it's like a food alliance network where they have like small businesses that are trying to get started in the food industry. They're able to basically rent a kitchen space that's been approved and everything. They help with marketing. They help them design packaging. They help them with their labels. And getting to tour that was awesome. And then I actually found out that we have one here in Zanesville. I'm like, what are the odds of that? Like, I was like, how can I get my kids up there? It was so cool to see that. And then I started researching, and I followed a chef on local chef on Facebook, and he's like, hey, check this out. And I'm like, we have this in Zanesville. It's really cool. So they actually zoomed in with my food science kids this year, talked to them about how the production all comes together. How to, I have an idea to sell salsa. What can I do with it? I've been making it at home, and they talked about how they kind of mass scale it up, and they help you with everything, making sure that you're everything, your safety, food sanitation, everything's good. I've also had local farmers come in and talk about, how they talk about crop rotation and how they basically we have a lot of dairy farmers locally, so they talk about the whole process. How does the dairy farm work? I actually have a teacher that works with us who owns a chicken farm, and she is one of the suppliers for a pretty large chicken. What would you call them? Chicken fat people. Starts with T. But she got to talk to us about. So we watch. The Holy Chicken video. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. It's from the guy that did all the McDonald's, but he does a whole chicken, and we watched that episode, or we watched that video, and then having her kind of come in and talk to the kids about it is pretty cool because it puts it into perspective. So with the food innovations, they look at making those dietary changes. So having a dietitian come in, also using people to come in. So we've talked to, I think, what was it? We did our extension that helped us with our Serve Safe, getting me started on that. Now I had the kids do their Serve Safe and culinary fundamentals. So just getting those people to come in and kind of reinforce maybe what you've taught. So maybe you can sit here and preach and talk about how food safety, chicken needs to be cooked to 160 degrees or 600 degrees. And they're like, man, whatever. And then they turn around and have someone come in and talk to them, and they're like, oh, that's why. So kind of hitting that, reinforcement and kind of, getting the kids to realize, like, we know what we're talking about, and then have someone come in and be like, yes, they know what they're talking about. Listen. Okay, interior design. So this one's been fun. I'm evaluating these now. I've had a couple kids that are interested in this, but I don't have any strong background in interior design. So what I have found, my mom's friend is an interior designer, having her come in and talk to kids. What are the new trends? When you look at living spaces, I have her come in and talk when they look at in my career and college readiness, when we get to be on your own, they get to design their first apartment. And so we kind of bring in, just to kind of expand, in your first apartment, you're probably not getting the most luxury furniture, but how can you design on a dime? Bringing in realtors to talk about, the market, the housing market, what kind of things to look for. So when you're looking at purchasing a new home, so we hit this in career and college readiness, what are some things to look for? Why is it important to look at the foundation? Why is it important to look at plumbing and electric? How can that be, something that's financially, stable to have something that doesn't need everything replaced, or how to budget that in. This one we've talked about several times today. I've been really lucky with extension, and another colleague, Karen Curry, has given me a pretty good connection. I believe with the Perry County Extension, they've done a couple of workshops for us for OAFCS, and I'm hoping to get them more into my classroom next year. But just finances, the one I really liked, I think someone dropped it in the chat, I think it was Misty, and Misty actually did our training, was the youth mental health, and we did a stigma training that was really eye-opening just having these people come in, she gave me a huge list. I think I was like, what else do you offer? And she sent me this like humongous list of like little workshops and things that can be offered. Okay, so what have I done personally with Tri-Valley FCS and FCCLA? So we've worked with our Ohio Domestic Violence Network. We have a women's shelter in our community. We collected, and it's my first year, so we collected just toiletries, and we did a bake sale, and all those funds went into, the place is called Transition, so we donated everything to Transitions. We've had Century National Bank, which is now kind of converted to Park National Bank, but they came in and they talked to my students in personal finance about opening checking accounts, what to look for in a bank, how to manage your credit, just kind of reinforcing those things that I had already taught, but sometimes having, having it brought to you again or having an outside person come in, it really kind of lets that set in and make sense. I've had an insurance person come in from Nationwide, talked about the different types of insurance, types of coverage, what's the best coverage for, a 16-year-old kid that's learning to drive. I had Zane State come in with their, I believe it was their, I forget what program it was, but they came in and they brought this really cool program called Age Play. My kids loved it. It basically makes them feel like they're a senior citizen. So we use this in my human growth development course. They put on these goggles that makes them so they can't really see as well. They had pill bottles, since when your like eye color or your color vision sometimes starts to kind of dissipate, how to determine the different pills. So if you give grandma a box of pills, here, take your pills for the day, like, does she know which one she's taking? They also got to put on gloves where they got to lose some of their feeling of their fingers to try to be able to manipulate things, tying their shoes. But the kids really got to enjoy that. We've worked with the Car Center Cake Auction, which we're hoping to do again this year. But they work with children, usually with speech and autism, but they have a cake auction and we participate in that. All the funds go back to the Car Center. So we had a student that made a little Scotty dog. Last year when we were planning to do this, she was planning to make a giant version of this Scotty dog. Unfortunately with COVID, we weren't able to do it, but this is her senior year. So I told her she's going to go out with a bang, and I want a huge Scotty dog cupcake cake. I've also had Muskingum University come in and a former student come in, and he is in the engineering department. So just opening up that career connection, and then also having that college come in. With this was part of our big project that we've been working on. This will be our third year that we've kind of, no pun intended, but toyed around with. We adapt toys for children with special needs. I do this in my child development class. We look at how to get these toys so that every kid has a toy to play with. And then we also partner with our multiple handicap classroom in all of our buildings, and we've provided all of them with bubble blowers that are switch activated, and some other toys that we have. So Muskingum University came in with that, and kind of piggybacking on that, we worked with Replay for Kids, which is actually an organization out of Cleveland that does toy adaptation. We worked with them, so we've gone to a couple of their workshops, and then we've also came and had toys that we adapted in class and donated back to them. So it's just a good way to make that connection with them. Zane State College was able to come in. This is also another, here's a career option. Chef Marco came in, he brought some of his students in, they did demos. Obviously these are all pre-COVID because COVID's been, fun to kind of deal with, but it was great. The kids enjoyed it. He came, I wasn't expecting what he did. He came in and he brought in different demos for every single period of the day. We started off, I think they made like chocolate covered strawberries, and you taught them how to properly melt down chocolate. They had sushi, they had, I don't even remember, but they something every day. I just felt like I ate all day, but it was wonderful. Another place I've had come in is Well-Rounded Midwives. They came in, they talk about the whole prenatal development kind of, so they actually bring in placentas, and the students get to play with them. So we kind of look at what is a placenta, looking at the entire organ itself and how it's the tree of life. What part's connected to mom? Where does baby live? They actually get to practice cutting the cord, so not too many people can actually say that they've ever got to cut an umbilical cord, because usually that's primarily dad's job, but all of my kids get to play with it. We look at how the, blood nutrients filter through, and the kids, some of them are like, this is the grossest thing ever. But once they get started in it, those are the kids I have to like kick out of my classroom because they're like, this is just so cool. I've had a local greenhouse, Gifts from the Garden, come in, do some demos on herb gardens, and they've also donated herb starts for us so that we can make little herb gardens. I know this one's a big one, financial literacy. We've helped with, my students in the past couple years have helped with our county, Jamie McConnell does our Michigan County 4-H program, but she comes in and does Real Money, Real World with our middle school students, and some of our, usually our seniors go down and facilitate it. And they're always funny because they're like, we need this again at a high school level. So I'd love to see if we could ever get like a high school, I think like, they get that, but putting it like, I don't know, as a senior, it kind of really puts things in perspective. Like, I'm going to be in the real world soon and I'm going to be spending my own money. So I think that's a great eye-opening thing. And then again, just working with FFA, I know a lot of times we team up. They've helped me kind of get things started. Like I wanted to get Parley Pro started this year and I'm like, I don't know anything about it. So they've come over and they've helped. I've helped evaluate some of their CDEs and just kind of making that good connection. So we can kind of like bounce off of each other. So when I look at family consumer sciences, I look at it as a big umbrella. And I think when we as educators, put our, our knowledge, and then we add in, I think the umbrella almost has all of our community partners. We bring in the FCCLA aspect to having them actually kind of get out there and put those skills and those connections to use. We are, hitting our students, but then we're also hitting our students' families. And then within our families, we're also hitting our communities. So as a big, I think it's just a big circle. And, I don't think that we could get anywhere without each other. Definitely without using our partners. Sometimes there's things where I'm like, I don't know anything about that. And I have to find someone that can come in and help me deliver that message. So I think it's really important to keep those doors open and keep it flowing. And that's all I have. If anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer those.